Hi friends, welcome back. And in this particular video, we're gonna see about another useful library called as Zero Cell. Right? We normally use a lot of Excel sheets, to drive our test automation suite. Right? So even in case of Selenium, APM, or REST Assured, wherever it is, we normally use a lot of Excel sheets. I know some people have migrated from Excel sheets to JSON, but still there are plenty of people still using Excel sheets. And for Excel sheets, we normally use Apache POI library, and you know how complex to work with an Apache POI, right? You normally get a lot of null pointer exception, and converting an Excel to a POJO for easy processing is always a difficult task, right? So again, in case of Apache POI, we need to add a lot of dependencies and a lot of code. We need to write a lot of code, and then handling the exceptions. You get a file not found, you get IO exception. You need to handle them properly, right? Basically, you need to write a lot of code, right? And if you have you know different types, maybe you are reading string, you are reading number values, you are reading data type, like Boolean, true or false, right? Anything, but you need to write a lot of logic, or you need to take everything as a string, and then you need to write your own logic of converting from string to, for example, Boolean, right? You need to write your own logic. Again, this takes a lot of efforts and a lot of patience, but I'm someone who is really lazy to do it. But instead, you can use something like Zero Cell, which can do this much faster way. It is really fast. Okay. And it solves a lot of issues that we have with Excel file reading. It reduces the boilerplate codes, and it's also solved number of issues that we have, like type conversions and much more, right? We want to see about that in particular detail, and if you are looking for their official GitHub repository, and this is their link, right? now Now let me show you the code, how this normally looks in case of Excel. We normally use Apache POI, right? The code looks something like this, right? I'm using a TestNG and a data provider, and here we are opening a file input stream connection, and we are giving the Excel path. We're opening a workbook, right? We need to also mention XSSF workbook. Again, if you use HSSF, that's for XLS. Again, you might get confused where to use which one, right? There is a lot of chances that we can make mistakes here. And you know and I need to throw all of them as a two-dimensional object array. So I'm getting the last row number and last column number, and sometimes you get a null pointer exception if you you know do some changes in a cell, and then you remove it. You, for your naked eyes, it may not be visible, but Apache POI treats that as a as a edited cell, and it will also consider that. We normally get a lot of null pointer exception. You need to run two for loops, because you need to iterate row wise and column wise. A lot of things that you need to code yourself, right? And once you return them, the number of columns that you have in the Excel sheets will be the number of parameters to your test method, right? If you have 100 columns, your test method needs to have 100 parameters. That looks your code much more clumsy. And to avoid that, you can also use something like a hash table, where you get all the values, okay, and then return them in the form of object array. You store everything in a form of list of map. And so if you notice, uh, inside every for loop, okay, I'm creating a hash map, and I'm storing the key value pass. For example, username as Samudan, and first name as something else, right? Whatever the values, I'm getting it in form of key value pass, and I'm storing it in a map, and I'm loading a list with this particular map. So you have a list containing each index containing a map, right? And each map contains the details about key value pass, right? Again, you can do this so that you get only one parameters to your test method. Again, guys, still the complexity is not reduced. You have to write a lot of code, and when you write a lot of code, there is a chance that you can make a lot of mistakes, right? And maintaining them, but making changes is always a big task. Tomorrow new code comes in, it becomes a little difficult to handle all these things, right? Good. Again, if you notice, we are just throwing the exception back. Suppose in some cases you want to do some actions when there is an exception happening. Okay, in those cases, your code may look something like this. I'm using a try catch block. Okay, if you're using try block, again, you need to close the resources, do a lot of stuff. I'm using try with resources, and you have a catch block that throws an instance of a runtime exception. I'm just giving my own customized error messages here, right? This is how the code looks. Still, the code looks almost 20 to 25 lines of code, and a lot of verbosity, a lot of chance of you making a mistake. To avoid this, we're going to use something called as Zero Cell. To use that, let's get into the IntelliJ workspace. First thing, let's go to the pom.xml, and this is the dependency that you need to add. And this is artifact ID is 0 cell hyphen core, and the version what I'm using is 0.3.2. Right? You can also, maybe by the time you watch this video, they may have an updated version, but yeah, you just add it and import the libraries. Everything is done. Now let's try to see how we can use this. Right? First, we need to see how we can use this. Let's open the Excel sheet. I have already created an Excel sheet called testdata.xlsx, and this is located in my project location, right? So in the root directory itself. Good. Now I have different fields here. For test case one, I want to use this test data, and for test case again, for the test case one, I also want to run it on Edge browser. So I'm having two different iterations for test case one, and one iteration for test case two, one iteration for test case three, something like this, right? And for this particular one, I want to use Chrome and other fields. Okay, these are all other data that I require in order to execute my first test case. Let's assume you may have even more. That doesn't matter. Okay, let's assume that you have only 5 or 6 fields for now, and I have carefully chosen the data types here. If you notice, is FTE is basically is full-time employee. Is this guy a full-time employee? Normally we pass it as a string, right? When we are doing the operation with this particular value, we do if this equals ignore case true, equals ignore case false, right? We write our own logic instead of accessing this as a boolean, right? We have to still use it as a string. The same way we have integer. Okay, normal cases, if you are using Apache POI, you need to use you need to find what type of cell it is, and then you need to act accordingly, right? That's an unnecessary task. And people what normally did, they convert them just to string. Okay, they convert them to string, and then while using in the code, they will again parse it back to integer, right? Again, while working with date fields, it's even big difficult task. You want to, your Excel has in different format, you want it in a different format, something like that. And in case of also phone numbers, I'm having them as string now. Let's say, for example, some fields may have 98, some fields will have their country codes. If the country code is already there, no problem. If the country code is not there, you need to write your own logic to add the country code. It's very difficult, right? While you have to read it, you need to write if it is starting with all this thing. You need to write your own logic. This makes your code very clumsy, right? How we can avoid all these things with the help of zero cell? This is what we're going to do. So take a quick look at the Excel sheet. We're gonna put it in one side so that we keep it as a reference. And maybe I'll use the split screen. Okay, and yeah, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the src main folder, and I have zero cell package. Inside that, I'm going to create a class now. Let me name it as test data. Okay, once you create this, okay, I'm going to map everything to a pojo here. Again, guys, I hope you all know what is a pojo. Pojo is plain old Java object, so that we can directly map them. Okay, now first, let's say I have something called as private string test case, yeah, column now, yeah. The same way I have private string uh, browser, and then I also have something called as first name, and this FTE is basically a boolean, right? So I can basically tell boolean, okay, is FTE, and private, this is basically integer, right? So I can basically use int or the box type integer, whatever you feel comfortable. Here I'm using age, and for date, for now, I'm using local date because I want to convert that into a local date. Okay, so let's import this, and let me also name it as date. Okay, and at the end, I also have a private string phone number. Okay, something like this. We created elements here, but we need to map, right? We need to tell zero cell, hey, map whatever you see here is a test case map to this guy. Okay, we need to tell that. So how can we tell that? They have annotations for easier processing. You don't have to write a lot of code. You just need to tell @ column. Okay, this is a column. Yeah, test case is basically a zeroth column, right? And then you can give name. Okay. Again, guys, this is an annotation. They have made name as a mandatory annotation, so you have to give a name for your column. So basically I'm giving same thing. Okay, I'm giving test case here, and you also need to tell in which index it is there. See, if you notice, it is suggesting. So the index is basically 0. So whatever you find in the 0th index of this Excel sheet, okay, you just store it in this particular test case variable. Okay, that's how it is, how easy it is. Now for the second one, again I can copy this. Okay, and paste it here. And this is again browser, and the index is basically 1. Okay, very simple. And here for the first name, again first name, index is basically 2. And this is a boolean, right? So we need to do little bit of changes here. So just copy this, paste it. Okay, this is FT. If you notice, there is another parameter called as converter class. Whatever you read will be available only in the form of string. You have to write your own logic to convert that to your desired type. Okay, so for that they are giving you can use some converter classes. You can provide your own implementation, and then tell us how you want to convert. So we are going to do that. So basically you cannot directly, or zero cell cannot directly map a string to a boolean. So you can it gives you a liberty to write your own logic. How you want to write it, you can write it. So for example, we're going to go here, and we're going to tell uh, right, new Java class. And this Java class, I'm going to name it as, this is basically a string to boolean converter. So you can use it for any other fields, not, it is not only specific for this field, you can use for any other fields. So here you just need to implement, they have one interface called as converter that is coming from zero cell. Okay, choose it carefully, and you need to tell what to what type you want to convert. At the end, I want to convert to a boolean type, right? So you can basically mention boolean. Okay, and then you implement the methods. Okay, there is a method called convert. For that, you need to provide your implementation, how you want to do the conversion. Okay, good. It gives you the value, whatever the value that it fetched. In our case, basically it gives us back true. Okay, it gives us back false here. Okay, all these things it gives us. I need to write a logic to convert a string of true to a boolean type true. Okay, you need to write your own logic, and this is basically your column name. Okay, and this is basically your row number. Okay, if you want to, you can interact with them, but for now my use case is only this. I'm just need to convert whatever the value that I get from the Excel sheet. I need to convert that back to one boolean, right? How can I do this? So you can just tell um, boolean dot get boolean, or you can basically tell value boolean dot value of, and then this particular whatever things. Okay, but if you notice here, this is uppercase. They can give it in uppercase, lowercase, whatever. So basically I cannot do multiple things. So what I can do is value dot equals ignore case. Okay, whatever the uh, so true. So whatever the value they are telling, I'm just comparing with true. Okay, if it is matching, then it will basically return a boolean, because the return type is boolean, right? The method return type is boolean, so it will automatically take care. Again, if you are not comfortable using this one liner, you can also use something like if value dot equals ignore case true, and return true. Okay, and else you return false. All this logic you can write, but basically this one liner will do that. Okay, so I have written my own logic to convert a string to one boolean, but I need to tell uh, for this field alone you use this converter. Okay, you don't use your default converter, you use the converter what I am giving. Okay, by default it will use, if you guys go to the annotation, okay, they have made these two things as mandatory, because there is no default here. This data format is default, by default it is an empty string. By default, if you don't give any converter class, it will use no op converter. So basically it doesn't do anything, it will just return you back the string itself. Okay, and here I'm giving my own converter. What is the name of the converter? It's string to boolean converter. Okay, dot class. Okay, if there is any other field that you need to convert from Boolean to string, you can also use this same converter logic. Okay, now for integer, again at the rate column, and then you have name, that is age, and you also have index, that is 4. Okay, and for this, again, string to integer, you need to provide the conversions. Okay, so for that I can also go here. By default, I think they can do it from string to integer, but for better, I want to give my own implementation. So string to integer convert. Okay, implements. Okay, converter, and at the end of the day I want integer. Okay, implement. Yeah, so now what I want to do, I just want to do integer dot parse int. Yes. Okay, so this will basically convert the value whatever we are getting into. So basically this is not very readable, so I'll just change it to value. Okay, good, this is done. Now I can go here to the test data and I can mention converter class equal to integer string to boolean integer dot, sorry guys, dot class, right? And for local date, again, you need to write your own logic. Again, we can go here, quickly create a logic, string to local date converter. Okay, and this again implements your converter. This is local date. Okay, this is coming from java data type. Okay, and I can implement the methods, and this is basically a string type. For now, whatever the date that is coming, you can write your own logic. Okay, you can write your logic. Okay, using data time formatter to convert it. But for now, for simplicity reasons, what I'm doing, I'm just doing local data now. Okay, whatever the date that is coming, I don't mind. Okay, for now, I'm whatever the date that comes, that doesn't matter. I'm gonna return a current date. Okay, today's date. That's what I'm doing. But you can do your own logic here. Okay, that doesn't matter. For time being, I'm not doing it. Okay, now let's go to the test data again, and we just copy this whole thing together. And this is basically date, and these are all one-time efforts, guys. Okay, and you will see how neat our code will be. Okay, and here the name is basically string to local date converter. Okay, and at the end of the day, I also have one more thing. So here I have a business logic that I need to implement. Okay, we will implement that. So string to phone number converter. Okay, but this is basically a string to string converter, right? So basically what I can do, a phone number processor, because I need to append a +1 if the +1 is not there. So implements converter. Okay, as an SDET, you need to do all these things so that your people who is working with you can directly go and start working with the test case, rather they are thinking about building a very reliable solution like this. Okay, string value, when I have a value like this, I'm just checking if the phone number is starting with. So if the value dot starts with, okay, if it is starting with +91, then no problem, I will return the value. Else, okay, else I will return uh, uh, +91, okay, plus value. Okay, this is basically inline if condition. So you can also give some spaces so that you can clearly understand what it is. Okay, you can also use your conventional if and else case, that doesn't matter. But I'm just checking if it is starting with +91. If it's starting with, then I don't do anything, I just return directly that. If it's not starting with that, I'm just appending +91 to it and then returning it. Okay, so I have my own logic now. Okay, so these things will be done at the back end. You don't have to write your own code to append it. If that starts with, no, you don't have to write it every time you use a number. Okay, you don't have to do that. That's what I'm telling. So you have something here called as phone number processor dot class. Okay, that's all, guys. Once you do this, okay, it will work. Okay, let's see whether we could able to read it. We have mapped it. Now we need to print all the values and see whether it is working fine. Okay, let's save this Excel, close it. Now to read this, okay, I can write just reader. Okay, there is a reader, okay, class that has a static method called as off. You need to tell class what class you want to map it to. I want to map it to test data class because this is the pojo, right? So I just need to tell test data dot class. Okay, okay, where you want to read it from. Okay, I want to read it from a file. Okay, the file that is located in my root directory, so I'm directly giving the file. Otherwise you can also give your path, okay, accordingly. From the file is fine, but give me the sheet which you are interested in. Okay, the sheet name is basically by default, I didn't do anything, so the sheet name should be sheet 1. Okay, and what else? Okay, do you want to skip the header row? Because in the header row we'll normally have first name, all those things, right? Yes, I want to skip that because I don't need that for my test case, right? So skip header row, I don't want to do that. And at the end of the day, give all these things in a form of list. Okay, so this basically returns you a list of hash map, right? This is what we have also seen here. Okay, uh, we have seen here, right? Here in the code, we have seen at the end of the day, we are storing it as a list of hash map, right? So that we can easily work with the data provider. Okay, so we're going to do that soon, but for now, we are just going to see whether we could be able to read it. Okay, I'm introducing a new local variable now. Let me name it as, this is test data, right? Test data, basically. Okay, and by default it doesn't know what type it is, but I know this is of test data type. Whatever that is coming out of it will be list of test data. Okay, so I want to print it. Okay, so I can directly list data for each. I'm using a stream here. You can also use your conventional way of for loop, but I'm using test data for each. And basically I want to print out so yes out C. Okay, for printing out I need to basically provide the toString implementation. Okay, I go here, maybe here, alt and insert, and go to the toString, provide the implementation. Okay, once you do this, go back and try to run it. That's all. So very less lines of code we are writing now. See, there is a copy paste error that it is telling cannot map two columns to same index. Okay, let's go and fix it. So I have copy pasted this, so I haven't changed this here. Closely watch out for the errors and resolve them. So I'm trying to run it again. So this time, if you notice, test case is test case 1. Whatever we have in the Excel sheet is now available in the form of a Pojo for us to use. Okay, and also if you notice, the phone numbers that we have in the Excel sheet doesn't have +91. Okay, all the columns. Okay, only one column has +91, other doesn't have, but here it has +91. And if you notice, the date is basically current date because I have written my own logic. Whatever the date they are passing, that doesn't matter. I converted that into a local date, okay, format. And we have, this is now a Boolean. Is FTE is now a Boolean. Okay, you can directly use if condition on it. So this is how you can read it from an Excel sheet. Now we will see how we can leverage this and use it with data provider. Okay, so that's what our next topic. So because we want to drive our test using data provider, we normally use data provider with our test engine, and then we'll drive our test cases based on this. Okay, for now the use cases might, there are two test cases, two iteration for test case 1, one iteration for test case 2, and one iteration for test case 3. Let's create a test case and then do it. Okay, and for that I have already created a basic template. So zero cell test, and if you notice, it's a very simple test. I'm launching my browser. I'm loading the Google, sending some values and quitting it. Okay, but if you notice, the get driver requires a browser type that is an enum, right? So basically whatever we are reading from an Excel sheet of browser is basically string. So in normal case, what you need to do after getting the value, you need to convert yourself. What you need to do, you need to write your own logic of let's say browser type dot, and then you need to value of, and then you need to pass Chrome or something, whatever. Okay, and then if they are giving capital letters or small letters, it won't work. And there is a lot of chances you can make a mistake here. Okay, so we don't want to write these logic ourselves. So what I can basically do, I can provide one more implementation. Okay, uh, I can provide a string to browser type. Okay, browser type converter that implements your converter and browser type. At the end of the day, I want browser type. Okay, so what I can basically do, whatever the string that comes. Okay, I am basically doing browser type. Okay, dot value of. Okay, uh, yes dot to uppercase. Okay, whatever that's coming, I can write my logic here and then I convert it. At the end of the day, in the test data, I have to go and change the type. Okay, this is not anymore a string, this is now a browser type. Okay, so this browser type is basically in simple enum, guys. Okay, this having Chrome and Edge, you have an option to run from Chrome and Edge. Okay, so that's how it is, very simple. And now let's go, let's close all these tabs. Okay, let's just focus only on this. Yeah, now I have a get driver that goes here. It checks what type of enum it is. If it is a Chrome enum, it launches Chrome. If it is Edge, it launches Edge. Otherwise throws runtime, sorry, the runtime exception. Okay, very simple piece of code. Now we're going to integrate with this the data provider. Okay, I'm going to create a data provider now. Okay, okay, data provider. Sorry guys, the problem is I have imported it from JUnit, so it's not giving me that option. So I need to remove that import. Okay, and then I need to okay, I don't have test-ng, it seems. So I didn't have the test-ng dependency in my pom.xml, so I have added it now. Let's also try to reload the project so that the changes getting reflected. Now let's also switch back to the original stuff that we are doing. So what is all the errors should be gone now. And if I try to import, it should basically import it from test-ng, right? Yeah, now this should show me the data provider option. Yeah, now I can name my data provider. This is get data, and I can use this to generate a data provider for me. Okay, let me move this little here. And yeah, now I need to return a two-dimensional object array, but I need to read the value from Excel sheet. Okay, I need to read the value from the Excel sheet, and then I need to pass it here. Okay, already we have done that, right? We have already written the code here, so I can use this code. Okay, let's copy this code. Maybe I'll write the logic here in the zero cell itself. Okay, maybe I can give it as Excel reader. Okay, I have a class called as Excel reader that basically is a final class. I don't want someone to extend this. And private Excel reader, I don't want someone to create an object for this. I'll use a static block so that I don't have to make a call explicitly. So I basically use static block because I don't make an explicit call to this. Let me introduce a new private. Basically this will return me a list of test data, right? So I can basically do this. Okay, and this is basically static, and let me initialize it with null. Okay, in the static block, okay, it will come, it will read all the values from the Excel sheet, and then it will get this value. Now this is a private field, but I want to access in my data provider. So basically I can expose a getter method for this. So use alt and insert, alt and insert. Okay, you can basically generate. Okay, let's okay, so alt and insert getter method, and yeah. So now again I'll switch back to static one. Okay, you can also directly access this, that doesn't matter. Okay, but for now I'm not doing it. Okay, good. So you have a static member and then the static method that will basically return the test data, right? Good. Now let's go and use it this in our code. Let's go to the zero cell test, and I want to drive this test basically. Yeah, so at the end of the day, what I want to read, so let me return null for now. And here let's write our logic. So logic is basically there is a class called Excel reader, and there is a method called get test data. This basically give me list of test data, right? I can basically return this. Okay, once you return this, it will ask you to convert to an object array. Okay, doesn't matter. So you can just return that, and it is telling you can okay, to array. Okay, let me convert to an object array. Okay, so that's all, guys. Or you can directly tell Excel reader dot get test data dot to array. Anything is fine, but I'm just returning it. Now this basically returns uh, test data type each time. Okay, so this will become test data, or just data, whatever the variable name that you want to give. So now using this test data, you can fetch all the information from that particular thing. Okay, so type data dot. Okay, it is not giving me any options because I haven't exposed. Okay, I haven't exposed any getter methods. Okay, these are all private fields, right? I want to expose some getter methods. Okay, so what I can do, basically I go here, press alt and insert. I just want getter methods. I don't want to expose setter methods because that will make my pojo mutable. Okay, mutable means it will be, anyone can call that set method and then change the values. I don't want someone to do that, so I'm just only exposing the getter methods now. Okay, now I go back. Now I get. Okay, so if you notice, get test case, get date, okay, get age, get browser. So if you notice, get browser is now browser type. Okay, so whenever I want to use it in my code, instead of hard coding like this, data dot get browser. Okay, this basically gives browser type. Okay, and maybe you are also, you can pass it from there. Maybe the whatever the first name that is coming, I want to give here. Okay, data dot get first name, that's a string, I can use it here. Suppose you want to do some comparison. Okay, if data dot is fte, okay, you can write your own logic. It's now a boolean. Okay, you can write your own logic now. Okay, write your own logic. Okay, so this is directly a boolean, this is directly a browser type. And phone number, if you want to interact with phone number, you can also do that. Yeah, so now why this is still throwing error, let's see. um Return, yeah, it's actually returning object array. Yeah, cannot return a value from a method with void result type. Sorry, sorry guys, there is a brackets here that I unknowingly added, so that is causing all the issues. Now everything is done. Okay, so now the code looks very clean, right? I'm not focusing more on the type conversions. Everything is taken care by these converter classes. Okay, for me. Okay, now if I try to run the test, it should work, but it will run for 4 times. Okay, there are 4 things. Okay, so this list will basically whatever we are getting, the list will basically will return 4 times, so the test should execute 4 times. Okay, let's see how many times it is getting executed. Okay, so pass correct browser type. There is some issues in the way we are passing the browser type. Okay, so so the problem is, we could see, if you notice, we could see what is the iteration. There are 4 iteration. The browser value is still null. First name is abcd, other things are looking fine, but there is a problem with browser. Okay, if I closely notice, we have done a logic to convert a string to browser type, but we haven't added the converter class here. So we need to tell the zero cell that we want a logic that is string to a browser type converter dot class. Okay, we need to tell them so that it understands what type of converter logic it needs to use to convert it. Okay, once you do this, let's go back again and let's try to run it. It should work now. Okay, yeah, basically the first time it is running all these things. Yeah, I think I should have added the parallel equal to true so that it would have run all of things in parallel. But yeah, but the thing is, everything is basically working fine. But the problem is, one problem is, for the test case one only, I want to run 2 times, not 4 times. Okay, so based upon this value, I want to restrict it. Okay, based upon the first column values, I want to restrict it. How can I do this? Is it really hard? I have to write a lot of logic to do that. Is it like that? No, it's very simple. So for the first two test case, for the test case one, I want to use these 2 rows. Okay, how can I write the logic? Let's go back here, and if you notice, this is just basically a list, right? So what I can basically do, I can write my own logic to filter only the required fields. Okay, if the test case field, if the test case this one is test case one, then only I want to do it. So how can I do this? So basically I can open a stream connection here. Okay, you can remove all these things. Okay, I can open a stream. Again guys, if you are not very familiar with streams, you can basically use for loop and then you can filter it. Basically what I'm doing, I'm just trying to filter out only the stuff, only the stuff that has get test case, right? The get test case. If the get test case dot equals ignore case of test case one, test case one, I want to return it. Okay, to basically an array directly. Okay, I can directly do this. So I can remove this line of code. Okay, can basically return it. Okay, so what I'm doing, so I'm making a stream connection now, and I'm it will basically give me all the four values. Okay, in that I'm getting the test case field and checking whether this is equal to test case one, and then once the filter is happening, it will only pass these two. Okay, these two will be failed and will be filtered out. Okay, only these two will pass. Okay, now there is a method called toArray which can help me to directly convert to an array type. Okay, again guys, in IntelliJ it may throw error you for object array, but it will still work. Okay, don't panic, it will still work. Or you have to go in settings and then disable it. Okay, anything is fine, but it will absolutely work fine. Let's try to run it now and then see what's happening. Okay, it should run only 2 times. So first time it is running. Yeah, second time also it's running. Okay, it's running in Edge browser, right? This is what we want. It's what happening. But yeah, I can also add parallel equal to true so that it runs fast. Okay, but the thing is I'm hard coding here. Okay, if I create my second test case, I have to basically change it to test case 2. Is there any way that I don't have to hard code so that I can use the same data provider for all the test cases? Yes. Okay, just inject method. Okay, method is coming from your reflection. Okay, control and so you can just import a class from java.lang.reflect. So from that you can basically use method dot get name. This method dot get name will basically return you test case one. Okay, so that you don't have to write. Suppose if there is another test case, let's say there is another test case called as test case 2, and for this test case also the get data is the data provider, but it will run only once because it will know that there is only one test row that is matching this. So let's comment this out. Let's comment this out and only run this particular test case 2. It should run only once. Okay, that's our intention because there is only one row in the Excel. Okay, basically it is working absolutely fine. Yeah, this is what is happening, right? So basic using this, you just can only one data provider, you can control all the tests. Excel sheet is managed, your type conversions are managed, your code looks very clean guys. Okay, you remove this. Okay, you see your code is very clean, you are not doing any type conversions, your code looks much clean than before, and you have a test data using the get methods. You can basically do all the things that you want to do. If you want to even customize that, you want to change it at runtime. Okay, you want to change the data at runtime, you can expose your setter methods, make your test data class mutable, and set all the values. As an SDET, you need to add value to your product with this. Okay, you can't keep writing same lines of code everyone is using. There are brilliant libraries. We need to explore like this, and then we need to use it in our code. I'll see you all in another great video. Thank you. Bye.